So today I'm talking to Claire Pettitt, who is a registered nutritionist and dietitian.
Yeah.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Emma.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So you are a registered dietitian and a nutritionist. So they are two different things. So what is the difference?
Yeah, so they are two different things. The main difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist, as a dietitian, we have to go to university for 4 years. We learn what a nutritionist would learn, plus more. So we go to university to learn the basics about the human body, biochemistry, understanding anatomy, all of like how the body works essentially. But then on top of that, we learn about medical nutrition therapy and how you can then apply nutrition to health and disease. So as a nutritionist, it's more kind of public health type nutrition information. So, what we need to keep our body well. But as a dietitian, it tends to be a bit more specialized, and you can help people who've got some kind of chronic disease or other diseases. And we are trained to work in hospitals. So we will do clinical placements. It's changed a little bit since I was trained, but there's at least 3 placements where you go into the community. You might do food service, but you have to do clinical placement in the hospital as well.
Okay.
So it's really about learning how diet and nutrition impacts us when we're healthy, but also then how you can apply it as a treatment and supporting managing disease.
Okay. So what's your background? So what made you get into it then? So you're from Maidenhead.
Well, yes.
But you've travelled around a little bit, haven't you?
Yes. So I'm kind of a bit of a mixture. I grew up in Maidenhead from about the age of 8. But before that, we actually lived in Saudi Arabia. My dad's English, my mum's Palestinian Lebanese. So we've got a very mixed culture background, and definitely grew up like loving travel, loving food.
Yeah.
And so I kind of naturally was interested in food and health. But to be perfectly honest, I didn't actually know that the job of a dietitian even existed.
Yeah.
So when I went to uni, I actually studied biology. I really liked, learning about science and about the body. So I was like, right, I'm going to do biology. I actually did biology with a year in Europe and learned Spanish as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
did biology in Spanish, lived in Spain for a year, because I just loved languages and I love traveling.
Yeah.
So that's where it started. And then when I finished my degree, I was like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? Most of my friends were going into either banking, I went to Imperial, so there was lots of good quality degrees, and people could go and do whatever they wanted, and most of them just like, I'm going to make some money. I was like, I couldn't think of anything worse than banking. So the other option most people did was teaching, and I was like, I am never being a teacher, which is funny because that's what I do now. I lecture. Different. I'm not a teacher at school. No. And so then I was like, okay, right, I'm going to do a master's and just keep studying because I really enjoyed studying, and decided to do a master's in nutrition.
Right.
So my next degree was a master's in nutrition, and it's only there when I went to King's in London that I realised that half the people were doing their masters in order to do dietetics then as a postgrad diploma afterwards.
Right.
So like I said, like as a dietitian, you know everything that you would know as a nutritionist, and then you kind of add on the more clinical side of things. The other difference that I didn't mention actually is that dietitians have to be registered with the Healthcare Professions Council. So we're registered. We have that. Basically, what that means is somebody will check what we're doing and make sure that we're practicing in accordance with standard of code of conduct and standards.
It's a bit like CQC, isn't it, coming out and checking on you?
Exactly. Yes. And in fact, I was audited a couple of years ago.
Really?
So I had to produce this massive portfolio of all the work that I do and back up, with evidence, the advice that I'm giving, essentially. So as a nutritionist, you don't have to be registered with anybody. You can be. And so there are some nutritionists who have amazing qualifications and practice really, according to a great code of conduct. But you can also be a nutritionist who has a, 20 quid internet course that you can then call yourself a nutritionist.
That's interesting, isn't it? You've got different levels there going on.
Absolutely.
But then it doesn't mean that they haven't got the knowledge, because they may have...
Yeah. So if you are a nutritionist, you could be someone who's gone to university and done nutrition for 4 years or done a master's in nutrition. So you could well have really good qualifications.
Yeah.
But it's just not standard across the board.
Yeah.
So finding out who you're getting information from if you do see a nutritionist, I think is very important. Same for dietitian, to be honest.
Yeah.
But at least with dietitian, you know that they've been to uni, they've got a good background in terms of their qualifications.
Yeah. And do you work with one-to-one clients then?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in terms of my kind of background, when I first qualified, the natural process for a dietitian is often just to go into the NHS.
I was going to say,
and so that's what I did.
Yeah.
In fact, the course, and the dietetics courses used to be partly funded by the NHS because that was the expectation, is that you just go into the hospital.
And were you working with adults and children and everybody? Or?
I have never done paediatrics.
Right. Okay.
So I don't work with children.
That's a bit more specialised then.
Yeah. So I initially worked in the NHS, and the roles that I did, what you tend to do in your first jobs in the NHS is spend a few months in one area and then you rotate and you learn about something else. It was a bit like with like doctors and how they rotate through different specialities. But when I had my first job in the NHS, I was running an obesity clinic. And actually, that's where I first started seeing women's health conditions, because now I work in private practice in women's health. And actually, the majority of the patients that came to that clinic were referred because they had PCOS and were really struggling with their weight.
So, and what is PCOS for anyone who's listening that doesn't know?
So PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah.
So it's really a really common women's health condition.
It does seem like it's quite common. I'm hearing it a lot, actually.
Yeah, which I think is amazing because women's health in general has not had the funding, the attention, the research that it deserves. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's great that people are more aware of it, but it is still underdiagnosed and underinvested in terms of research and funding and all the things. But it is getting better. So people with PCOS are
another one.
Yeah, exactly. But PCOS, endometriosis, menopause, infertility, like all of these things we're talking about a lot more, which is wonderful. But it'd be great if we had more research in those areas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So talking about women's health, is that something that you kind of specialise in a little bit more now?
Yes. So I worked in the NHS for many years. I kind of got a little bit bored because it wasn't quite what I it wasn't. I really love learning. I love constantly learning, and you do learn a lot in the NHS because you learn from your colleagues. It's a great environment in terms of MDT, so multidisciplinary work. You can learn from other healthcare professionals, and I learned a lot doing those rotations, going through learning about stroke management and about gastroenterology. I did a long period working in gastroenterology, so I did a lot of gut health issues as well. But to be honest, there's not a huge amount of progression through the NHS. It's quite slow and there's a lot of red tape. So if you want to try and improve things, it's often very, very challenging. So I decided that I would leave and I went into research and did my PhD. So that my next stage in terms of dietetics was then to kind of, I didn't sack in clinical work altogether because that's when I started also my private practice. So I've got a private practice which I've had for many, many years. But it's always been the sideline alongside other things. So I actually started, first of all, in the NHS. I was doing some evening clinics after hours, seeing private clients. Then when I went into my research, I carried on doing clinical work. But my research was all about weight loss. So I was looking at different interventions for weight loss, but also looking at how they would then impact appetite and also how it impacts your body composition and changes as you lose weight.
I find the term weight loss quite interesting, actually, because we're hung up on weight and scale weight, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Rather than fat loss.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's a term that needs to change?
100%. 100% agree with you. So actually, through the long process of doing my PhD, which I did, like I think normally people take 4 years to do a PhD.
My son's doing his PhD in his first year.
So throughout my PhD, it probably took me more like 9 or 10 years. I had my 2 children. We bought and sold a house. We got married, and we also moved across the world. So like lots of things happened, and it just took me longer. And I think also the process of doing a PhD just teaches you a little bit of resilience and accepting that things don't always go to plan, which are amazing, skills to develop. But throughout learning about weight loss, the outcome for me was that I now practice as a non-diet dietitian. So I actually don't focus on weight loss.
Yeah, because diet, you think of going on a diet, but it's a broader term than that.
Exactly. Your diet is what you eat.
Yeah.
That's actually what your diet is.
Yeah.
But it's been co-opted by the diet industry.
The media.
Exactly. In terms of dietary restriction, right? And actually, you know, and that tends to be the focus when we think about diets, is what am I cutting out?
Yeah.
But from a much more holistic way of practicing, I would say you should focus on what you're adding in and how it can benefit your health. Yeah. So as a non-diet dietitian, we tend to not actually prioritize weight as a primary outcome. Now, when we think about dietetic outcomes, or you know, what we can do as dietitians, weight is such an easy one to measure. And actually this, in my opinion, is one of the reasons that a lot of the research that we have is very also weight focused, because weight is so easy to measure. You just pop someone on a scale and there you go. And when you look at the weight loss research out there, whether they were testing a certain diet, exercise, lifestyle changes, whatever it is, it's easy to measure weight. So that seems to be like, okay, if the number on the scale changes, then they're like, okay, right, this diet helps with weight loss. But is it the diet?
Yeah.
Is it specifically, well, what is it about the diet, I should say, really?
Yeah.
You know, because, and is the weight loss the main outcome, or is it actually the fact that you're having more fruits and vegetables, or you've increased your fiber intake, or you're being more physically active, that then result in weight loss? And is that weight loss, because they say, okay, this weight loss is then having a positive impact on our health, but is it the weight loss, or is it the fact you've got more fiber in your diet, or is it the fact that you're more physically fit? Like what? So often they don't,
holistic, as you say,
they don't separate all those multiple confounding factors very well in the research. And I think some studies do, but it's quite hard to do. And I just think that it's almost like lazy science to just rely on weight loss.
On one thing,
And in clinical practice, I would say the same. Like, weight is not the be all and end all, and it doesn't tell you anything about somebody's health.
Is it the
BMI?
BMI.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, that's quite dated, isn't it?
BMI was originally developed by a mathematician.
Yeah, I heard this. Yeah.
And so
a
man who just wanted to look at what the average man was.
Yeah.
And of course, when he did that, he got your classic bell curve, right? Normal distribution, because bodies are different and there's body diversity. Some people are short and fat. Some people are short and skinny. Some people are tall. Like it's variable.
Yeah.
But the average man is in the middle. And that's what he said was, okay, la moyenne is what he called it, because he was Belgian, so he's French speaking. And originally it was called the Quetelet index, because that was his name. And then when insurance companies heard about this nice simple equation using weight and height, they were like, "Ooh, the average man. Okay, right, we can use this and help, you know, whether we give somebody insurance or not for the average or in the extremes." So it went from just an interesting observation of what the average man is like to then health insurance companies adopting it.
Yeah.
And then it was only like the 1970s when it went into the world of health and science, and one of the researchers started saying, okay, well, we can use this to essentially tell us what healthy is, but it was never designed to look at health. Your weight and your height doesn't actually tell you much about your health.
Well, absolutely, because you could stand on the scale, look at your height, and it could tell you that you're obese. But you could be a bodybuilder.
Exactly. So body composition is much more useful information, but it's harder to measure body composition than it is to just jump on a scale.
Yeah. But there are more tools now, aren't there? There's some quite sophisticated, I've never used them, but there are sophisticated kind of technology to...
There is. And when I was doing my PhD, we actually put people through an MRI scanner to look at body composition. So we were interested to look at the distribution of fat and
muscle. And
so when you say like you could be the same weight and height and BMI as, like, to have two people and they could look very different. They could also look the same, but one could have a lot of internal fat and one would have subcutaneous fat. So subcutaneous is like your butt and your thighs, you know, junk in the trunk. That's actually that's actually a really helpful place for fat to be, because it protects your organs. And so actually, if you have fat around your organs and in your organs, it's much more harmful for your health.
Yeah, so around the middle and everything, that's where it's more dangerous.
That's where it's more dangerous.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we really need to focus on, because the media is responsible for a lot.
Yeah.
Especially for women as well, you know, pinch and inch and all that kind of
Oh
thing.
my God, yes.
And we kind of look at the aesthetics, but we could have stuff going in the high cholesterol or whatever's going on the inside, and we need to look at that and think about our health and long term rather than just the short term. Can I fit into the bikini for the summer holiday this year? So
exactly.
we need to look at our health in the long term.
Yeah.
Health, exercise, movement, everything. It doesn't end when we get to a certain age. We should.
Yeah.
We
And
should
so those
continue.
are you've just named some of the other outcome measures, right, that you can look at.
Yeah.
So instead of just looking at somebody's weight, I would say to them, okay, well, what's actually important to you? What impacts your day-to-day life, or what are your health goals, or what are you actually trying to achieve aside from weight loss?
Yeah.
Like what? Often people say, okay, well, I want to be a different size for the bikini, or because it makes me feel better, right? But what is it that you're able to do when you're a different size or not able to do, right? And sometimes actually it doesn't change anything, but for some people it does. For other people, actually, they've been told to lose weight because of a health condition. I'm like, okay, well, let's look at your health condition. What are we looking to change? So like with PCOS, for example, often you do get weight gain, but you also have irregular hormones, like imbalanced hormones. I don't really like that term, but your hormones are a bit out of whack. You might have irregular periods. You might have like physical symptoms like excess hair growth on your face and on your chin and your neck. You might have hair loss on your head. Those are like actual symptoms that you can measure. So for some people, they focus on weight because often, especially with PCOS, they're told to lose weight by their doctors. But I'm like, well, let's focus on the things that actually impact you. Maybe you're somebody who's trying to conceive and you don't have a regular period. Let's focus on that. Like, maybe the weight loss will come. But actually,
it should be the first thing.
What's the most important thing for you in terms of your health or your lifestyle, or it depends on the person.
Because hormones play a part as well, don't they?
Exactly.
That's quite complicated, isn't it?
It is quite complicated. It used to be thought of just as a reproductive condition, but actually the more we know about it, the more we know that it also impacts a lot of metabolic health, psychological health. PCOS is associated with things like anxiety and depression, binge eating and like disordered eating, even things like sleep apnea, like there's so many like comorbidities, other health issues that could be associated with PCOS. So it's not just about having a regular period. There's so many other factors involved.
And is that something? So with PCOS, is that something that can stem from a young age or at any age?
So when in terms of when people tend to be diagnosed, there's kind of like these pockets. It could be any age. Once a woman of reproductive age, basically. So after you go through puberty, you shouldn't actually get a diagnosis within the first few years of getting your period, because your cycles change. It takes time to settle, and so you shouldn't really. And one of the criteria. So there's 3 different criteria to diagnose PCOS: irregular periods, high androgen levels, which are the male type hormones which cause things like that excess facial hair or even acne, those sorts of symptoms. But you can measure in your blood the levels of those hormones. So testosterone is an example. And then the the third one is having cysts on your ovaries. Now they're not actually cysts, they're actually immature follicles that will, in a normal menstrual cycle, will develop and then go on to release an egg, and then you'll have a period if you don't get pregnant, right? But in PCOS, it never actually releases the egg, so the egg stays on your ovaries, and so they're just these kind of immature follicles that are like stuck in the cycle.
So then the next cycle, another one will appear. So you just end up with multiple.
So they stay there on your ovaries. Now, when you're going through puberty, you can often have your ovaries often look very similar to that, and there's lots because there's so much is changing. So it's not the right time to do a scan, and also they're not very nice internal ultrasounds. So we don't tend to recommend that is done in that age group. So you wouldn't always get diagnosed at that point. It might be just a few years later on. But then also a lot of women get diagnosed when they're trying to conceive, because
that's when they notice it, I suppose.
They come off the pill and don't get a period, and they realise that something's not right, and then they'll go to the doctor. So there's lots of different. It could be any time, to be honest. It really depends on that person's experiences and whether they've.
And is there a cure for it, or is this something that you manage?
Yeah, there's no cure, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's
but
you manage through diet, nutrition.
Yeah, diet, lifestyle. I much like the way I approach most things, it's very holistic, and diet and nutrition can have a really big impact, especially because it's that kind of metabolic health. There's often insulin resistance with PCOS as well.
Okay.
So we know that diet can have a big impact, but exercise also has a big impact. And when we're talking about body composition, like actually that's probably more important to focus on than weight, because your muscle mass, your muscle tissue is much more metabolically active than fat.
Fat isn't at all. Yeah.
So fat produces hormones and it can influence things, but often in more of a negative way. So actually focusing on your body composition can be a much more effective strategy. Yeah. But equally, another factor that kind of plays a big role in terms of how PCOS progresses is inflammation. And we often see that people who've got PCOS have this kind of like underlying low-grade inflammation. And so things like stress and managing your stress, sleeping well, like all these holistic factors actually have a really big impact on managing your symptoms and your condition. So although there's no cure, you can manage it pretty well.
Yeah. And people can go on to naturally conceive.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's just being aware of it, educating, speaking to them about yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there's also medications that help, right? Okay. So it doesn't have to just be diet and lifestyle, but if you look at the international guidelines for managing PCOS, diet and lifestyle is the first line approach. That's what you should try first.
Because you don't want to just be pill popping
exactly
to try and fix something.
Yeah. But then, if what you want is to get rid of your facial hair, then of course, then you can look at treatments for that. Or if it's acne, then maybe you might put, topical lotions, or even take some, hormonal based pills. Or if you actually need help with getting a regular period in order to conceive, then of course there are medications that will support that. But I believe it's important to address diet and lifestyle as well.
So with diet and lifestyle, so we talk about diet, talk about nutrition. Is it something that is quite overwhelming for some people?
Yes.
Because sometimes, busy lifestyles, grabbing something from the freezer section, or there's a lot of talk about UPFs, ultra processed foods at the moment, which then can also have an effect on hormones and moods and sleep and everything. So is it a very overwhelming thing for people? Do people feel like it's not something that they can maintain?
So honestly, when people come to me, I'll talk specifically about PCOS, but I also see people for other reasons. So, gut health and just people's relationship with food.
Okay.
But often with PCOS, like the advice that they're given when they are diagnosed is lose weight. Often it's cut carbs because of the link with insulin resistance, and maybe go on the pill to regulate your periods, right? It's very much a simplistic view of how you could manage PCOS. And it's not, they're not often given a lot of information about PCOS itself.
Okay.
And they often internalize it and think, okay, well, it's my fault because I'm too fat or because I'm not eating well.
Yeah.
And like you said, people live very busy lives. They're like often under a lot of stress. They're managing children, parents, busy work roles, maybe even shift working.
Yeah.
Like it is hard to maintain a very healthy diet. I've done that in inverted commas because I don't really like that word also. So
balanced diet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So often when they come and see me, then and I'm like, well, okay, let's kind of throw that out the window for a minute. There's often a lot of relief that we don't have to follow all these crazy strict rules about what you eat and avoid all these UPFs and avoid, sugar and avoid carbs, and like
it's not like it's not about demonizing the food or the food groups.
100%. So although it's hard to do, it's not impossible. And often when you let go of that pressure to have a perfect diet, it's easier.
I think some people, not all people, but some people can be all or nothing, especially when it comes to diet. I'm doing the inverted commas thing as well, diet, exercise, you know, I'm going to get on the,
Yeah.
I'm going to get down to the gym, it's January, all that kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
it fades and they feel like they should be all in all the time, or they just fall off the wagon, as they say, and then it's back to the old routine. But it doesn't have to be like that, does it?
No,
You
absolutely
can
not.
live a balance. You can live in a balanced way, can't you? Yes.
The kind of backbone of a very healthy diet, although I don't like that term, what would, you know, class as a really good quality diet, is actually a varied diet. Now, if you're cutting out food groups or foods or nutrients, it's quite hard to achieve a varied diet. A balanced diet, you know, including all the food groups, all the different macronutrients, and not going, you know, crazy on cutting things out. Variety, balance, and moderation.
Yeah.
It's not sexy advice. It's not the kind of thing that's going to change your world overnight. But most people don't actually do it. And they choose these like quick fixes that they can only do for a short period of time, and then it's unsustainable, and that's when they fall off the wagon and sod it. I'm just
think about the old, you know, the slim fast diets back in the 80s and the 90s and those sorts of things. And these sorts of diets still exist, don't they?
Yeah, of course.
But they're the fads, they're the ones that are not sustainable.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you are having a decent diet, decent food every day, you're home cooking and you're having your proteins and your fruit and your veg and everything, and then you have a bag of crisps, that's not the end of the world, is it? It doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to just like now eat 10 packets of crisps and a couple of chocolate bars because why not? Now, you know, I've fallen off the wagon. You can incorporate things into your diet, as you say, in moderation.
Exactly. But if you have that mentality of like, I can't have anything, then
you'll think about it more, won't you?
You think about it. So you kind of go into that restrict binge cycle almost. And that's often what we do more work on actually in sessions in my clinic, is actually that your mentality around food and what actually influences your relationship with food. What have you been through in your life? Maybe it's to do with how you were brought up and your childhood role modeling, or you know what you were taught as a child. Maybe it's to do with what medical advice that you've received. Maybe you've had a new health condition and it's given you a bit of a shake up. Or you know, even it just could be what's in the media and on social media, and you follow all these hundreds of people who are telling you different things, and it's all very confusing.
It is confusing. I mean, I scroll sometimes on Instagram or whatever, and these reels pop up. I don't even follow these people, and somebody will be popping up with this carnivore diet, and it's no carbs, and if you want to sustain fat loss, this is the way you should eat.
Yeah.
And then you'll get somebody else saying, no, women need carbs.
Yeah. It's very contradictory, isn't it?
And then you get these other people that they talk about weighing food and looking at portion control. So you can go too extreme with it, can't you?
Yeah.
But the portion control is quite interesting, though, isn't it? Because that is your moderation.
That is your moderation. I would say if you're someone who's weighing your food for every single meal, you're kind of taking the joy out of food.
I mean, yeah.
All those external kind of cues and messages that we receive on Instagram or wherever it is about how we should eat or what we should eat, especially when it comes to portion size, they're all very well, but it doesn't actually apply to everybody in the same way. We're all individuals with different biology and genetics, different day-to-day experiences. We're different sizes. We've got we may be, you know, different hormones going on, different health conditions, you know, everything. Somebody might have exercised this morning and be hungry and now, like, how can somebody else tell you what you need to eat?
Yeah, exactly.
So actually one of the ways, the kind of frameworks that I use in my practice is intuitive eating. And that is basically based on developing interoceptive awareness skills and tuning into your body, listening to your body, understanding what your body tells you about hunger and fullness, but also about everything. And then honoring those cues and actually thinking, well, I am hungry. I need to eat. I need to feed myself and nourish myself to look after my body. If you're someone who's dieted for a long time, then it's quite hard to listen to hunger cues, because hunger traditionally has meant success. I'm hungry, so I'm, you know,
calories.
I'm in a calorie deficit, so I'm just going to ignore that hunger for now. So you get very good at ignoring those signs and signals that your body gives you. So sometimes it is about slowing down and listening to your body. But in order to do that and like ignore those external signals, you do have to then almost challenge some of the beliefs that you have about food and about bodies, and that can be really hard to do.
That's hard, because once you've been told something, you believe something, it's hard to undo all of that.
It's really hard.
So there's a lot of psychology around it.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I agree with all that, I'm all about sort of eating mindfully. In fact, I mean, I did a very low impact workout this morning. I do work out every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'd be weights and resistance, and sometimes it'd be a bit HIIT. Some days I just don't want to do an awful lot, which this morning I was quite late up. But I was actually hungry. I had like a light breakfast, and then by mid-morning I was hungry. So I kind of felt, right, I'm going to have something. I had something quite high protein, tiny bit of carbs to go with it. And I do try and eat mindfully, and I might not be hungry again till later on. But then I might get these evenings where I'm tired.
Yeah.
I want the sugar. What happens then? So
you cravings are a normal part of life, right? But understanding your cravings and why they happen can just be a helpful strategy, right? If you're somebody who's got underlying health issues and maybe you've got insulin resistance going on, that can also drive cravings quite strongly. If you are like, understanding the difference between types of hunger can also be helpful, and whether or not you are physically hungry and that craving is because your body actually just needs a good meal, or is it more like a taste hunger, we call it, where you just want something sweet, or you just want something salty or crunchy, or that's more to do with the sensory nature of food. Or are those cravings because of maybe an emotional need that's not been met, and maybe you're lonely, or you're bored, or you're stressed, or also things like our fatigue and tiredness impacts our appetite. And did you have a good night's sleep yesterday? Or if you've done a lot of exercise in the day and not actually had a balanced,
not fueled yourself
exactly
enough,
then your body will be getting hungry sooner, and you'll start craving those foods that will nourish your body and give you energy quickly. So there's nothing really wrong with cravings. It's just being able to understand them, and in the context of your personal circumstances, your day, what's happening, why is that going on. But you know what, it's never bad to eat. And even emotional eating sometimes gets a bad rep, right? And you say, oh well, no, if I'm an emotional eater, and that's my, I end up binging and eating too much or the wrong foods. But actually, food brings us pleasure, and that is why we continue to eat, right? If you think back to the caveman days, I mean, appreciate a lot has changed since then, but if we didn't enjoy food, we would never go out and find more of it. It was hard to eat well in those days. When we eat, it stimulates all those pleasure centers in our brain. It's an enjoyable experience. So it's actually really a clever strategy to eat when we don't feel happy, because it makes us feel good. It is comforting. But what's probably more dangerous about it is if it's your only coping strategy. Like, whatever's going on, if it is stress related or whatever, if you are the kind of person who doesn't have insight into what else can help relax you, or manage your stress or whatever, then and the only way that you do that is through food, then it's when it becomes a bit more of a problem.
Another one could be habit as well. It could be like sitting in front of the TV in the evening, let's just reach for the snacks, the crisps and whatever. So again, it's breaking those habits.
And habits are really hard to change. They take a long time to change. And so often, like, a lot of the work that we do is actually about behavior change. It's not like you can look online, you can ask AI these days, what should I eat for X, Y, or Z? You don't need to go and see somebody. I mean, I'm shoot myself in the foot here, but it, like, if you just want information, it's out there. But how many people follow it?
No, exactly.
Because actually changing what you're doing already is really hard. It's really hard. So,
and actually that's where the guilt comes in, because we know it's wrong. We know how to check, but it's as you say, it's knowing how to do it. We know what we shouldn't do, but how do we approach that? How do we change those habits? So you work from home?
Yeah, so my clinic is virtual.
Oh, it's a virtual clinic.
I
yes.
do work from home. So I see all of my clients online. I also work in academia, so I don't have like set timings, so I'm pretty flexible.
Yeah.
But predominantly, I will see anyone who wants to improve their relationship with food, anyone who has women's health issues, so PCOS, endometriosis, infertility, menopause, anything really women's health related. And like I said earlier, like I did a lot of work in gastro in the NHS, so often I'll see people who've got, you know, chronic gut issues, maybe IBS, and in fact that's quite commonly overlapping with some women health issues as well. So PCOS, IBS, or endometriosis and IBS is quite a big one. So often women don't know they've got a women's health issue. They actually have the IBS first, and then
so it's a symptom of something else.
It can be, yeah. And especially with women's health conditions, like it takes up to 2 years to get a PCOS diagnosis. It takes up to 9 years to get an endometriosis diagnosis. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So often other things come up first, and it might be either misdiagnosed or there's just other things going on. But so I also see people with gut issues. But generally, like, you know, improving your relationship with food, chronic dieting, like people who want to get off that dieting bandwagon and just have a more kind of gentle relationship with food.
So where can we find you? So where's your website?
Yes, so my website is just my name. It's clairepettitt.com. 4 T's in my surname, often misspelled, double T. Or my email, which is info@clairepettitt.com. And I'm also on Instagram. It's at CP_nutrition RD. RD stands for Registered Dietitian. So, okay.
Oh, thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been really fun to chat.
Brilliant. Thank you.